think I'm recording. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Ramya. I am a senior in chemical engineering, and I am one of the project leads for the Guatemala Water Sources project.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Manny. I'm a second year in environmental engineering, and I'm, of course, also a co-lead for the Guatemala Systems Water Project.
So we're here to give you guys a little bit of an introduction about what our project does and what we've accomplished over the past years. So to start, we want to talk about the people that we work with, the leadership team we work with in Guatemala. So we work closely with a nonprofit called CSEP, and they're led by Suseli Ifalem, who's shown here. So we work really closely with Susi. We have done so for the whole history of the project, and she really coordinates all the on-the-ground work happening in Guatemala. Reuben is another member of CSEP who we work closely with. He was very involved in the remote implementation trip we had last fall, where we weren't able to travel, but he was able to coordinate the underground work again. And then Bruce is a member of the RTP Engineers Without Borders chapters, and he serves as our responsible engineering charge as a very valuable project mentor.
Yep. So once we were able to find this project, before even I was involved in Engineers Without Borders, the first thing that we had to assess was the community that we were going to help out, and that is Caserío Panjush, which is a Guatemalan community consisting of about 54 families and over 300 people. In the community themselves, they speak Pocomchi, but our in-house and our in-country collaborators speak mostly Spanish. And as Ramya just talked about, we do work closely with them, which is CSEP, which is short for Centro Comunitario Educativo Pocomchi, and they kind of allow us to bridge the gap between us, EWB, and then the Caserío Panjush community, so we can get our work done efficiently.
So our first assessment trip happened in 2017. So this was the first time a group of NC State students traveled to the community and kind of spoke to members living in different houses in Caserío Panjush in Guatemala. We also did some initial water quality testing, which you can see in the upper right picture, where they tested the water for E. coli, and the fluorescent tubes show that they were positive. We also found out that most people were getting water from springs, and they usually had to walk, a few hours each day to travel to these springs to collect enough water. And this burden usually fell to women and children in the community as well. So knowing that access to water, distance, and also the kind of health and cleanliness of the water were all things we wanted to address, is how we decided on the rainwater catchment system model.
So once we did do that assessment of their needs, we of course had to come up with some sort of solution. And as we saw that the community was very disconnected from any nearby cities, and they live about a 30-minute rocky drive from the closest town, the best thing that we could come up with at the moment was a rainwater catchment system. Another thing about the project is that we have to purchase all the materials in country. So in Guatemala, CSEP purchases those materials based on what we tell them to purchase, and then they go and when we arrive, supposedly when we did used to go in person, we help them implement with those materials that we purchased in country. So these rainwater catchment systems are sourced from Guatemala. They're about 2,500 liters, and we do attach them to gutters on the houses of the community members. That's helped with PVC piping. And the way it works is kind of, the first thing we have to make sure is to do a first flush, which is kind of a first, well, it's pretty much how it sounds. You do a test of the water and you allow it to flow up to get all the sediment out, to filter out all the heavy dirts and the flocculation that may occur. So then later water can go and be filtered by the system. And so currently they're getting all that water in different methods, and then they're boiling it. With us, we've kind of helped them. It can go straight from their roofs, which we're working on making them fully lamina, which is metal roofing, to then flow into our rainwater harvesting system, filtered straight. And then of course they're still gonna boil the water afterwards just to make sure that it's completely clean for drinking and hygiene.
So following our assessment trip in 2017, we had our first implementation in the summer of 2018. So a group of 10 NC State students traveled to Guatemala, and we were able to implement 10 systems on this trip. And this was our first kind of interaction with a lot of these community members, and members of each household that were receiving a system were very involved in the construction of the system itself, which also helps with the understanding of how it works and how to appropriately maintain it. Following this, the next implementation was in December of 2018, where we did 16 systems. As you can see, we also had the same kind of model with the gutters and leading up to the tank, and we were able to expand by doing 16 systems this time. Finally, in August 2019, we had our third implementation. We did 20 systems, so it was our largest implementation yet. And we had a few modifications. Some of the houses that were being implemented on this time had roofs that were made out of plant material and unable to support like the gutters, the hangings. So we ended up having to make little roofs over some of our systems that we would then hang the gutters from, so that it would be adequately supported when it would rain. You can also see some pictures of sort of the terrain in Caserío Panjush. It's very mountainous, so walking from house to house implementing systems is a lot, and transporting materials as well, of course. We have a video here, which we're not going to play for you just because of time, but check out our YouTube channel if you want to see more.
Yeah, and then that leads us to, of course, a big gap in our efforts, which of course everyone knows about because of the start of COVID, but we were able to kind of work around that in a way that we kind of had never seen before. And we did that in the form of a remote implementation in fall of 2020. And the way we did that was we had to work very closely with CSEP, not only in asking them what materials to get, but now they were also tasked with sourcing labor for an implementation in the community. So that kind of meant that our team members had to do a lot more planning on how we were going to schedule an implementation without us actually being there. But in the end, it was, I believe, a very effective implementation from what I've heard about it, because this was actually the semester before I joined Engineers Without Borders and Guatemala Water Systems. And similarly, we are doing another remote implementation this year. That's kind of our future plans, but it's actually looming, and it's actually more of a current plan. We're basing a lot of our efforts on that fall 2020 remote implementation to kind of get ahead in planning, and we are planning on doing that. Our current remote implementation to do 9 more water catchment systems on the remaining houses in the community this coming April. So for any of you guys that are interested in the project, you guys would be pretty much diving headfirst into our final implementation of the project as a whole. And you'd be helping out with kind of the brainstorming phase of getting all of our resources together before we allow the community over there to do the remote implementation with all of the resources that we send them. This is kind of a map of all the houses that we've done work on, which is about 60 houses now. So by the end of the project, when we do implement these final houses, it'll be around 69 or 70 houses. So we're definitely looking forward to that. And we're doing a lot of effort as of right now. So I'm excited to get more into it, and I'd be excited to have any of you guys on board as well.
Yep, and in addition to our next remote implementation, there will be a monitoring trip hopefully within the next year, to sort of assess how the existing systems that were implemented, a couple years ago are still doing, and make sure that everything is still working as designed. So we definitely would appreciate any new members to help with those efforts.
Yeah, sure. I think that's all we have for now, but thank you for listening, and we're looking forward to getting your applications.